Esports was supposed to be the future. Stadiums, million-dollar tournaments, and global leagues. But as you've seen with the recent departure of 100 Thieves from League of Legends, it hasn't really gone that way. So how did we go from the biggest hype cycle in gaming to teams going bankrupt, leagues collapsing, and orgs fleeing the scene? The truth is, esports isn't dying. It's more so that it wasn't ever truly alive. I'm not sure if you guys remember, but 2016, 2018 era was the golden age of esports. I remember getting on Twitch and watching all the Overwatch League games and then hopping on for Worlds with all my buddies and watching that go down, and it was such an amazing time to be into esports. I mean, the tech boom era meant money was flowing in and investors didn't even care about profits yet. Streamers were all in on esports. You had people like XQC who was both streaming and playing competitively, which brought in all the viewers to see how they would do. And it really did look like the next NFL or NBA. Everyone really did believe that it was going to be the next big thing. I mean, esports looked unstoppable. But a lot of that growth was built on hype and just no revenue. So when I look back on esports, I think the number one question that comes to my head is, why didn't esports succeed like we've seen traditional sports succeed in the viewership experience? And I think there's a bunch of points. I mean, traditional sports don't change their rules every 2 weeks. I mean, this is something Mark Cuban mentioned. It's just too hard to run a competitive team when you're having patch notes every 2 weeks, and your best player, let's say he's a Ziggs main, and Ziggs gets completely nerfed. Well, I mean, yes, you should be able to dynamically play other characters, but it's definitely going to hurt your team's performance overall.
When it's a five person team and the meta changes every 90, 120 days, it's like a whole new game. It's so competitive and it's so mentally and physically straining that it's brutal.
And it's not just that. I mean, traditional sports also know how to market their leagues properly. I mean, I can't tell you how many professional leagues I've seen die because they decided to move their league, and this is like unfathomable, to like Facebook Gaming or Mixer. I mean, what are we doing here? I don't know how many of you guys were fans of Smite, but I used to really enjoy the game, and they were doing really well. Like, it was a growing game, and they decided to like move their game to Mixer, and ever since then, I mean, the competitive scene has like completely disappeared for that game. These leagues can't help but like be super short-sighted in terms of just like generating revenue, and it really hurts the products. I mean, traditional sports are kind of running into this issue with maybe having too many places to stream their sports, but at the end of the day, everyone knows ESPN. Lots of people know Peacock, right? Nobody, and I'm telling you, nobody it knows Facebook Gaming. like that's just the truth of the matter. You're outright sentencing your competitive league to death. And I mean, it like, besides that, I mean, the devs as well, you have situations where the devs are just moving on with the game, going from, like Overwatch 1 and Overwatch 2. And besides that, I mean, you have regional loyalty for traditional sports. I mean, I think Overwatch League did try for a little bit to get regional arenas, but it wasn't like a full idea, like a fully complete thing. And I mean, I think that's something that really helps traditional sports. I mean, if you're trying to go watch your local team, it really attaches you to the teams and less so the players. And with the players, I mean, the devs can't help but shoot themselves in the foot again. I mean, banning a player like XQC unequivocally hurt Overwatch League, right? He was bringing lots of viewers, and when you ban him, he moves on, and all those viewers are no longer watching Overwatch League. And I hate to harp on Overwatch League because I think it was trying to do something innovative, but every step they took was shooting themselves in the foot, and I was really rooting for its success. And I think it's kind of like the perfect story to encapsulate what's wrong with the esports scene and how these developers are just not ready and not prepared to have this thing grow and learn from maybe even traditional sports about what makes them so successful. And I mean, I think this brings us to the root problem, which is that esports was never really profitable. I mean, I'm sure you guys have heard about Moist Critical's esports team, and even someone as popular as Moist Critical has reported losing $4 million in the span of just 4 years. And I mean, this is someone who is loved by his community for the most part. I mean, he explains like most people lose, or most teams lose money on salaries, on events, on travel, on content, on productions. And I mean, sponsors are only really going to cover a fraction of those costs. And it's supported by like all these orgs leaving the industry, like TSM, CLG, Overwatch League teams losing so much of their valuation. And at the end of the day, like the numbers just don't add up. A way that traditional sports are able to kind of get around this, because traditional sports are not going to be able to fund their operations just solely off sponsors, is through media deals. By licensing their rights to something like an ESPN, and maybe that's something that these leagues need to look into. But it's tough. It's tough going back to the previous section where we mentioned something like a Facebook gaming is just not good enough. And I think honestly, it's gonna need a really popular league to cut even a break even deal with something like an ESPN, um, so that for the long term you can at least break even and grow the popularity of something like esports into the mainstream, where I can turn on the TV and regularly view it. And last but not least, of the main things why I think esports is struggling right now is teams' lack of looking at exterior talent or growing talent or cultivating talent. And you can even see this in games like League of Legends, where it's oftentimes the same players rotating team to team to team, for overvalued salaries relative to what they're gonna bring in and the success that the team is gonna get from bringing that player on. And I really do think that esports needs its own Moneyball era, right? Where teams are forced to use limited resources to create the best teams possible. You have so much talent in the tier 2 scene that is just being unused because it's the same players being signed and rotated from team to team. You even saw someone like Dokla being given a completely new chance on 100 Thieves and making the most of the opportunity, and them performing very well this year. And it's just because he was given a chance, and a lot of players in the tier 2 scene are simply not given that chance. And it really doesn't make sense, because teams spend so much on salaries, especially in something like League of Legends, and these players are just not bringing their value to the team. And I think valuations on players and salaries need to come back to earth if esports wants to see a new golden age, or any sort of success going forward. The tier 2 scene, the local grassroots scenes, all that needs to be used more to cultivate talent and to actually use talent moving forward. So, can esports really be saved, and can we ever really return to that golden age of esports? I think so, but it's going to require that companies prop up their teams for long-term success. And I think it's going to require stability. That's the number one thing that esports has struggled with and has always struggled with. It's stability with patches, stability with salaries, stabilities with viewership. All of these things are just something that needs to be managed properly, and just hasn't been so far by developers and by companies just as a whole. and it's hurt the esports scene significantly. I mean, esports didn't die. The fantasy version did, and the real version might finally grow if companies look towards stabilizing the scene and looking back at reality to growing esports. Thanks for watching.